Well, hello. I'm here with Doug to talk about Chevron Deference and other things. It is
Ooh,
Friday, June 28, 2024. And let me start with that. I thought this was the most important thing. The Supreme Court is pumping out appalling decisions, and this is the one I've been hearing about for years. In fact, I've heard people say this was the reason Trump really put those three people on the court, not even to overturn Roe versus Wade, but this was the one thing that the Republican donors really wanted because it will really change everything. It's Chevron deference, which is the phrase for the basis of the current administrative state, the thing that the current Republican Party hates. So when the EPA decides that you can't have a car that sticks certain kinds of smog in the air, they just have experts decide the scientific evidence shows that this pollutant is harmful and you must take it down below this level. And the opinion of the current far right extreme Republican Party is that they should have to go to Congress and have a law passed or everything like that because scientific experts are not qualified to make a judgment. So this kind of ends the regulatory state where agencies can make rules and those rules have the force of law. And what the judges said is only a court should be able to make these decisions because they just don't believe in science and expertise. They don't believe medical experts should be making decisions about vaccines or health experts about food or anything. They think this should all be decided by judges and courts. And that is now apparently the law of the land. So we can expect industries to succeed in pushing back on environmental regulations and safety, consumer safety regulations, and all those. It's a really big change in our legal system.
yeah, boy, is that something. So, Sam, I got a couple of them for you. In the Bay Area CARB, which is the Bay Area Air Quality Resources
Mm-hmm.
District, CARB.
AQA is the one I know, Air Quality Administration or something, but there's a bunch.
Yeah, yeah. So they recently banned the sale of gas water heaters and gas furnaces to
Oh,
take effect in at the end of 2025 or 2026 in the Bay Area.
what about gas stoves? Because that was the big
Not
storm on
I
like Fox News last month.
yeah, not gas stoves, but gas water heaters and gas furnaces.
Does that actually make any sense? I mean, I can see the furnace, but are those actually leave more dangerous things in the air? I guess because they're running all the time.
Yeah, there's a pilot light, obviously, in the hot water heater,
And they must burn pretty
if it's
fast.
gas.
And when you're using the
Yeah.
water, it must be burning a lot of gas, I guess, to heat up the water.
Yeah, and here are kind of some of the trade-offs that are, I think, really unfair. Is that most of the homes, or I can't give you an exact number, but let's say a lot of the homes in the Bay Area were all built with gas appliances.
Yeah. Probably the
And
old homes, it was the only choice.
yeah, it was and a little trivia that I think you might find interesting. You
Mhm.
remember the show The Beverly Hillbillies?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. If you watch at the end, they used a gas stove in the show, and one of the sponsors was the American Gas Council, something like that.
Yeah.
And what it was a shift to get people away from electricity to start using gas.
I remember this cooking
And
with gas. Yeah, it was a big phrase.
yeah, the cooking with gas. Yeah, yeah.
But I thought
So
it was a step up from having a wood burning stove. I didn't know they were putting electricity in the middle.
see, I think if you're, from what I understand, you grew up in the East Coast. I did not.
Yeah.
But on the East Coast, everybody had electric appliances, electric water heater for the most part.
Could have been. I've heard this all my life. People argue. They say they'd rather cook on gas. They'd rather cook on electric. It's a matter of preference. Yeah.
Yeah, but it has to do more with the history of the United States
Yeah.
and that we electrified America. And if you go back to I think the 30s, 40s, there was a movement to electrify, to get electricity to everybody's home.
Yeah.
So the appliances that you got first, or the conveniences, if you will, you wanted hot water, you either burned wood, you burned coal,
Right.
or now you had electricity, the clean way of heating water.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's in the Bay Area. The city of Berkeley, about 6 years ago, 7 years ago, tried to make it so that the building of new homes would all be electric appliances, and they would not issue a permit for a new home if gas lines were to be installed. And they set out, or for a while there, new homes could not have gas lines delivered to the
Hmm.
gas from the mains to the house. Now that was overturned, and interesting kind of little politics that happened is the gas council, whoever the gas industry is, their lobbyist, they kind of laughed at Berkeley saying, this is no big deal. It's Berkeley, little crazy thing. We're not going to pay any attention to it. Well, shortly after, the state of California decided talking about a ban on all gas appliances. Then the gas council came back and lobbied heavily and squashed what was going on at the state level and attacked Berkeley viciously to get that law overturned.
Hmm.
Politics, right?
Oh yeah, yeah,
So now Berkeley is considering that if you have a home, and again, this is not a new home, but if it's an existing home and you sell it, you have to convert from gas appliances to electric appliances. It's a proposal that's
yeah.
being talked about.
Yeah, well, I guess this decision will have some effect on all these agencies thinking they can
Yeah.
pass rules like that. And
Yeah. Yep.
I got
Yeah.
one more in politics, of course. Did you see the debate?
No, I did not.
Boy, I watched it and it was awful. And every Democrat is freaking out. Biden was old. He was stammering. He made no sense. You couldn't hardly hear him talk. And Trump was like strong and powerful. Everything he said was a lie, but it was such a contrast. So many people are saying Biden has to drop out. We have to run somebody else. But Biden's absolutely refusing to do that. So, but I think it's manifestly obvious that he is just too old and incompetent to be president. There's no concealing it. So everybody's totally
Interesting.
freaking out. It's a DEFCON 1 moment. Um, because
so,
it looks
so
like we're really
Sam,
going to end up with Trump because I think Biden is not going to step down and he can't possibly win. He's losing
yeah,
Democratic support because Democrats don't believe he can be trusted with the job. I don't think I do. And so
yeah,
I don't think I
yeah,
can vote for Trump. I guess I'll still vote for Biden, but he won't win because he isn't even getting all the Democrats to vote for him, let alone getting the people in the middle.
yeah. So maybe we'll bring back Bernie Sanders, huh?
It would be a ton better. Anybody, Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, Gavin.
Ross Perot.
Well, might be okay actually if he isn't too old. He's probably too old. Arnold Schwarzenegger
Yeah,
would be fine. He's got a little problem with the citizenship though. Just somebody who is like reasonably competent and adult and not a complete lunatic like Trump. I mean, Trump was just making up lies like crazy, saying Democrats are aborting fetuses after they're born in the ninth month. They're just killing the babies and stuff like that. He has these terrible things that are just wrong, and Biden couldn't even call him out on it. He was like too lost and sort of dazed to make any coherent statements. So anyway, people
so
are going nuts.
yeah, so this kind of sounds like the original or the first televised debate between Kennedy and Nixon.
It reminded me of Reagan versus Carter, where
Oh,
Reagan
okay.
was like grandfatherly and in command and like a leader, and Carter had like these intellectual mathematical things to say that didn't have any emotional punch. But in this case, Biden couldn't even say
Hmm.
that. He tried to do that, but he couldn't even remember what he was saying long enough to finish his listing of how many dollars for this or that. It was
Yeah,
just sort of horrifying and sickening.
yeah, got it, got it. All right, you
It
got
shows,
another story.
yeah,
Oh,
once again, it shows like the Fox News claiming that Biden is not up for this. They're kind of right, unfortunately. Anyway,
all right, you got another one for us, another story.
well, I'll mention one more, and then I'll go to you. Timu.
Okay.
You use Timu, the shopping app? It's
No, I've heard of it.
well, what have you heard about it?
Nothing.
Okay, just
Nope.
no, because apparently it gives you great deals, but then people complain that the product quality is low, and now it turns out it's being sued by the state of Arkansas, saying it is malware. It is running collection on your device. It is stealing your personal information and sending it to China, where it'll be so used for scams and stuff. They say it is dangerous malware, so they will this will
So,
be brought in the courts.
So what exactly have you used, Timo?
No, I just read the description. It's a shopping app where you can shop for amazingly cheap products that come from China.
So kind of like Alibaba or Banggood.
Yeah, or eBay, something like that. But
Yeah,
apparently,
okay.
people complain and say the products are in fact not very good, and it is turning on unnecessary
Oh,
permissions on your phone and sucking out all kinds of data that's none of its business and sending it back to China. So
I see. I
I
see.
think it just sounds like it's doing essentially what all American apps do, only a little bit more ferociously. Because all
Yeah,
American apps suck your data and sell it for money too.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Anyway, anyway,
All right, Sam,
go ahead.
I got one for you. Copper thieves have been around for a while, and they've been stealing, copper wires out of homes, out of businesses, street lights, and copper is a valuable metal. You get it, you turn it in.
They find
Turns
some way
out,
to cut the power off first, I guess, right?
no, you just use insulated gloves, I'm assuming.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Okay. So turns out, I don't know how they got into this, but they cut wires, 16,000 wires that knocked out the 911 service for three Bay Area cities, Hercules, Pinole, and San Pablo.
So are these cables like the old T1s that have like 56 copper wires going through one thick cable?
Uh, yeah, except I don't know physically where this took place,
Yeah.
but somehow it must have been an AT&T, you know, I don't know, substation or something. And it's the wires that I guess service the police departments for each one of those cities.
Oh man, those are the wrong ones to cut. They'll notice. This is like people
Well,
that steal police cars and stuff.
yeah, but
Well, in San
to be fair,
Francisco, we're stealing the catalytic converters out of the police cars. And this is just a
no,
little too,
is
oh
that
yeah,
right?
they're rolling underneath there, cutting out the catalytic converter. This is like, you could pick a better target.
Yeah. So not too long ago, I can't remember one of the Soviet satellite companies or countries. Somebody was in there again. It was a woman, like uh, looking for scrap, and she wound up cutting the fiber optic cable
Yeah.
that serviced the country. You probably remember
Oh yeah, I
that
remember that.
story.
Created a big outage. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but this is something. You'd think that I'm assuming these must have been landlines, obviously, probably old traditional copper, telephone sets, and it makes sense that police departments, emergency services are still using those because they're reliable.
Yeah.
But if you're a copper wire thief, like, we don't have a landline anymore. Nobody's using all that copper. It's up in the telephone poles underground that goes to everybody's house,
Yeah,
or
you're
pretty
right.
much everybody's
Yeah.
house. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and it's nothing
Anyway,
you can do. You can't really
yeah.
protect all the wire. It's got to be like out in the country on poles,
Well,
unprotected.
yeah, it's got to be on poles. It's got to be running conduit underground, under streets.
Seems
I
like these would
know
be nearly impossible to stop. I mean, it's a pretty
it
easy job
is.
when you can
It
get some
is.
money. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, the only way to kind of stop this is at the metal recyclers. The people are paying for the metal.
Yeah. If they actually required you to prove that you were some kind of authorized reseller, that's right.
Yeah. Or, well, I mean, people collect aluminum cans and,
Yeah.
wire, things like that. So, they ask for your driver's license. And from what I understand, the first check that you get is delayed by about a month while they kind of do a background check. But then once your driver's license is in the system and you're selling, they can develop. I'm going to go on a limb here and say AI, but they can use some kind of statistical analysis
Yeah.
to see how often you sell and what you sell.
But a rule like that would be part of that administrative state that you can't
Yeah,
just do easily anymore.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So anyway, service is back, but kind of interesting about that one.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I got a few others. Perplexity. I've recommended it before. My sister told me
Yes.
about it in AI. Well, people are getting really mad at it and they're figuring out how it works. And there was an interview from the founder explaining what they had to do is they had to get a bunch of data from the current internet. So what they did before Elon Musk shut down the academic fire hose for Twitter, they made like hundreds of fake research accounts pretending to be academic researchers, scraping all the Twitter data, and then they made bots that scrape all the websites, and a bunch of people are claiming that they ignore the robots.txt no follow order and just steal your stuff anyway. And they say, no, we don't do that. But what we do is we include data from other bots that we don't control, and maybe they did that bad thing, which is not that much of a defense, actually. So a lot of people are getting mad at Perplexity and say that they sort of steal stuff they shouldn't be stealing to add to their AI search engine, but it does work pretty well. Anyway, it's interesting. And I think what it's doing is retrieval augmented generation, like Microsoft Copilot. It has an LLM trained on data up to a couple of years ago, and then it has a database like Google of like some paragraphs from every website, and then it takes that and adds it to the query. So it adds that extra information to bring it up to date. And there's another one. OpenAI has now made a critic GPT model, which is there to fix the errors in the output of GPT-4, in particular the code. Everyone, like I've noticed many times, and many people have probably noticed, if you get ChatGPT to write code, it won't run. It's got errors in it, so they make a second AI just to take the errors out of the first one. And this is, I think, what everybody is really doing. This is probably the only security measure that's worth anything. If you tell your AI not to tell people how to make a bomb or how to make poisons, it really won't obey those instructions because it doesn't understand that your instructions are more important than the customer's instructions. But you have to have a second layer of filtering after the AI to say, does this output appear to talk about a poison? Then block it. That seems to be the only, because that one doesn't have any data that came from the user. So user can't prompt inject that one. This seems to be the way we're going to go. You'll have an AI generating the answer, and then you'll have another AI looking over the answer, improving it.
Yeah, got it. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I got one. Sam, did you hear this one about the 15,000 car dealerships
Oh yeah, the
that
big
have been down?
like
Yeah.
that health agency that got hacked about a month ago that brought down like a third of the hospitals or a third of the pharmacies in the country.
Yeah. So I don't know that we know exactly when it started, but this is not dealership from software from Ford, VW, Mercedes. It's not their software specifically, but all car dealerships use a third party software
Yeah,
that arranges all the DMV. Do you know the name of the company?
CDK Global.
Yeah, CDK
It's some kind of
Global.
middleman data processor that many of them use.
Yeah, and if you're filling out DMV forms, insurance forms, this company is the one that provides the software. If you're selling your car to a dealership, you're buying a new car, buying a used car, takes care of ordering parts, takes care of scheduling when you go into the service department.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting that there's only one company that all the dealerships seem to be using.
This seems to be true of every industry. There was one company handling medical billing for most pharmacies, and Ross Perot, his company in Texas, does all the printing of payroll checks for everybody. I forget the name of it
Yeah.
now. This seems to be business to business middleware, seems to be a sort of hidden layer of our industry that is being exposed by these ransomware attacks.
But you'd think this is the car industry. There would be competition of the software, little secret sauce for GM versus Ford versus VW, that there'd be some slight differences, but guess not.
Apparently they've competed until one person owns it. Remember, there's a time when
Yep.
Microsoft had 99% of the desktops. I mean, an
Yeah.
industry can reach the point where one dominant player gets pretty much all the business. And that seems to be
Yeah.
the case. Like
Yeah.
this is what happened with Colonial Pipeline, right? It was the billing service that went down, and that brought down the whole East Coast. For a week, they couldn't get their gas.
Yeah.
It just
Yeah.
shows the fragility of our infrastructure.
Yep.
Yeah, if we
Exactly.
actually had an antitrust regulation that did anything, it would help prevent this from having one company dominate an industry. But that doesn't seem to be working out very well at all.
Well, sometimes we enforce antitrust, other times we don't.
Yeah,
So
well, we haven't. The tech lobbies have gotten so good that nobody in America seems to be able to regulate them at all.
yeah. Yeah.
Well,
All right. What else you got? You got another one for
I
us?
got a few more of these.
You
This
got
one,
a good one?
I know, I like this one.
All right.
NPR has an article saying the brain makes a lot of waste. Now scientists think they know where it goes, and I've wondered about this a lot. There's the blood-brain barrier. The fluids in the brain are not connected to the rest of the body. And then now they found out that there are things that build up in the brain during the day that are bad for it, and you have to flush them out. And this is what happens during sleep. And
Oh,
and I
interesting.
think in particular, in a certain phase of sleep where you have these slow waves of electricity pulsing through your brain, and they took, I think, rats or something, and they exposed them to electrical stimulation to simulate that, and they showed that it caused a fluid motion in the brain that pumped the waste products out. And they suggest that Alzheimer's might have to do with not clearing these waste products because they are the amyloids in addition to other things.
Right.
So this sounds like a really interesting step forward that you do have to clean the fluids out of your brain. This may also explain why you need sleep. All my life, scientists have said, why do we need sleep? Studies show that if people stay up for like 3 or 4 or 5 days, they start having hallucinations and acting psychotic, but we don't really understand why. We don't know what happens when you're asleep that is so important. So this might be it.
So it's kind of like a function like a kidney.
Yeah. Yeah. And it might also explain why when you're asleep, you have these dreams where weird random things go on because you're just having random waves of firing going through your brain, triggering
Yeah,
random memories. Um, so, I'm interested in seeing that make some progress.
that's an interesting one. Yeah, yeah.
Well,
What a leap forward
well, if
in
you what
research in that.
there's
Yeah,
another leap forward that really impressed me. China just sent the first probe to the far side of the moon and they
right.
harvested some rocks and brought them back. Well, in those rocks, they found graphene, pure carbon, and they claim that that pure carbon proves that the theory of the creation of the moon that has been predominant for decades is wrong. The predominant theory that I learned about the moon is that there was a collision with a heavy body that knocked a big chunk of the Earth off, and that is the moon. But apparently, if that happened, it would be very low in carbon and you would not find products like graphene there. And there's been another Asian study that found spectroscopically evidence that there was far more carbon on the moon than there should be. So that's surprising to me. That formation story of the moon is now in doubt when I thought it was pretty much an
Hmm.
established fact. So,
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was an established fact as well. And the reason is that we have moon rocks and we've been able to compare them with rocks on Earth.
yeah, well, now they say this throws it into doubt. I don't really understand why there wouldn't be carbon if it came from Earth, but maybe the part of the Earth that was scooped off was low in carbon or something. Anyway, it's pretty exciting. I thought it didn't mean that much that China sent that probe up there, but apparently it does. They have probed a
Yeah.
different part of the moon and they've learned a scientific thing that we were not learning with our probes. So good for them.
So, I have to ask, I don't know, I'm just throwing this idea out there. Could that be from asteroids hitting the moon?
I don't know. I doubt it
Yeah.
because graphene, has to form, I think, in sort of like
Oh,
uniform conditions. I don't think it could form from an explosion. I think that would shatter it apart, but I'm not sure. I'm not enough of
no, but could it have been created someplace else?
carried in on it.
Transported, yeah,
I suppose that's true. And then the question would be if you pick some random rocks off the moon, what are the chances that those are asteroids? Yeah, it's an interesting issue. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Just my thought. Who
Well,
knows? We'll
it's
have
like
to
we were
see.
talking a couple of weeks ago about how many tons of meteorites fall on the Earth every day. There's a lot of it. So
Yeah, 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 yeah. But that means those conditions would have had to have existed someplace else in the universe, solar system.
that's true. Well, if they exist on Earth,
Yeah,
I assume they exist elsewhere.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So do you know, is graphene naturally occurring on Earth?
I've never
I
heard of
don't.
it, but apparently it's an interesting question. I've only known of graphene to be artificially created, but I guess it could
Yeah,
form. If a diamond can form, I would think graphene can form. It's a similar compound, just someplace with a lot of carbon at the right temperature and pressure.
yeah,
But I
yeah.
don't really know. It's a good question.
Hmm, interesting.
Yeah,
All right.
go
You have
ahead.
another one for us, or
Well,
you
I've got
want
them,
me?
but why don't we go to yours?
All right. This is a quick one. I
Yeah,
think this is kind of ironic to a certain degree, but a man flies 1,000 miles to affect a fellow gamer with a hammer. So he flew from New Jersey to Florida because of some beef playing online games.
so an online troll, basically. People get so mad online about stuff.
Yeah.
I remember
But
seeing.
I
I
mean
remember.
that's dedication, isn't it? How
Well,
much is a flight from New Jersey to Florida?
well, but if you go online, people get so mad on chat rooms and Twitter and stuff.
Yeah.
I do occasionally hunt people down. I remember there was a case about 8 years ago where one of the NASA astronauts
Right.
There's a woman that got so mad and she went across the country to like kill somebody from an online
Or
argument.
no, another astronaut who
Man,
was having an affair with another astronaut,
yeah,
and I think she was the girlfriend.
yeah.
So, some story like that, and she wore diapers, as the story goes, so she could get there faster.
People, this I remember there was a detective novel I read that I liked. The guy said there's only two reasons people do stuff. It's either love or money, and the difference is love makes you crazy. And I like this. Anyway, I got a couple more little
All right.
ones. Windows 10.
Okay.
Windows 10 is coming to end of life. So some group called Zero Patch has said they are going to continue to put patches up for Windows so it will get 5 years of additional support. So you can continue to use Windows 10 for 10 years from now, which is something a lot of my friends want to do. A lot of people don't want to go to Windows 11. They hate it like people hated Windows 8. And you could put unofficial security patches on. I guess that might be one way to protect your Windows.
So, in a lot of computers don't support Windows 11, correct?
Yes, a lot of hardware doesn't.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
also, not only do they add all this AI stuff to Windows 11 that you might not want, they're now putting ads in it and collecting data
Yeah.
from you to send up to them to target the ads. So a bunch of people are pretty offended by Windows 11. And I was hearing on one of the Twit podcasts, they were saying it does seem like what's happening is Windows 11 is going to become an ad-supported product like commercial TV. That's Windows is probably headed in that direction. And so they will be
Yeah.
collecting data from you in order to have targeted ads on your screen so Microsoft can make more money. And I think this is the kind of thing that will move people to Macs.
I would say so. We're over advertised,
I
in
know.
my opinion.
And Windows already wasted my time so much. When I went to a Mac, it was like getting out of prison. I just hadn't
Yeah.
noticed how every time you turn it on, you have to wait a half an hour for the Windows update and then the antivirus update. Then it restarts 3 times. Then there's a problem you have to fix, and you just open your Mac and it works. It's like the way computers used to be.
Yeah. And the way computers should work.
Yeah. I remember
Yeah.
when Microsoft had all these repair features like a system restore and everything, they brought this up to Steve Jobs and he said, no, make it so it just doesn't crash in the first place. Don't add all these repair features.
Yeah. 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 So, Sam, I know, if people are going to defect from Windows to Mac, I
Yeah.
think now is not the time to buy, because I think next generation they're going to include the AI chips.
Well, it's
The
already got the
Apple,
well, the M series, the ARM
yeah,
has some AI, but it's getting better. Yeah, I mean, I think it would be the M4 is apparently the thing to get now, and I think it's already out. It's the
is
iPhone
it?
you're talking about. The iPhone is
Oh,
going to have a new version. Yeah, the Mac, I think, has already got a reasonable version you can get.
yeah, and I think iPads also, correct?
Oh, that could be. I'm not sure about
I,
iPad.
I think the iPhone, iOS platform, iPhone, iPads,
Yeah,
it's probably worth waiting. But the Macs, I think you're right. The M4s are out.
yeah, and I think,
Yeah.
but you're right. You want to be careful and get the one that can support the Apple AI if you want it. And I think most people do want it. Is the difference, when Microsoft adds a feature, people say, is there some way to stop it? I don't want it. And when Apple adds a feature, say, yeah, let me have it. Because Apple will make a feature you like probably, and Microsoft will probably be something horrible like ads or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I should mention one other thing. We have CyberCamp, free training at the high school level, but also community college students can participate. So anybody that wants to go to my website, samsclass.info, it's coming up July 8 to 12, and we're going to let people connect online if they want to, so people can join us. And it's a free week of training if you want it, gamified training.
And what are you going to cover? What kind of
I don't know the exact
material?
details of this year, but in the past, it's been based on the Air Force's Cyber Patriot. So it covers Windows security, Linux security, and Cisco security. And it has a lot of hands-on projects and CTF contests and things like that. It's designed to be fun and engaging.
Yeah. And so it's like finding passwords or
Yeah.
looking up IP addresses or finding
Oh,
passwords.
when I did it, they would have a
Yeah.
Windows virtual machine, and you would have to find like 10 suspicious things on there. There'd be like a malware-looking file and like a browser extension and other things like that. You just learn how to scour Windows machine for like obvious bad things. And you
Yeah.
get points for each of these. It's like Packet Tracer. There's a scoring engine and a hint, find this, you find it, and then you get a point. And you find the next one and you get a point. So it was pretty
I
good.
see.
Teaching.
So it might be like Wi-Fi, like an access point is open,
Well,
No,
it'd be something
some,
in the Windows environment, Windows, Linux,
yeah,
and then Cisco. It'd be security mistakes, failure to
yeah,
obey like the 20 best practices.
yeah, yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah. And
that's
if you're
good.
not, and it's sort of competitive and fun. So it's pretty
All
popular.
right,
Yeah. Anyway, I just wanted to mention people go to my website if they want to join. We have openings. Anyway,
good. Okay, what else you got?
that's it for me.
That's it for you. Well, Sam, I'll tell you, I think I didn't have time to research this one, but it's a pretty interesting story that I just started reading, and it has to do with evolution. And specifically, this is interesting, at least to me it is, the evolution that's taking place in Ukraine, I guess, in the exclusion zone.
Is that where the
So,
Chernobyl was?
yeah, we're
Oh,
Chernobyl. So,
well, I've seen articles about the weird animals that are appearing there.
well, yeah, but this has to do with wolves and how wolves, which are apex predators, are actually evolving to deal with the high levels of radiation that
Yeah.
they're exposed to. And they're exposed to the equivalent of about 3 chest x-rays per day.
Yeah.
And they're exposed to this from the time that they're a fetus until they're born.
Yep.
And, or I should say, until they die, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so they're looking at the genetic changes that are taking place.
Yeah.
Very, very interesting.
Oh, yeah.
And right. And so you'd expect a higher level of cancer, but they're not seeing that.
Hmm.
So
Good. If
we'll
they
see.
figure out how they do it, maybe they can make drugs for us based on whatever they're doing to stop the cancer.
Yep. Well, you were talking about the radioactive proteins
Yeah.
or the proteins that have a binding site for
Yeah.
cancer cells
Yep.
that have a radioactive payload accompanying them.
Yeah, but that's targeted to kill the cancer. Just having general radiation in your body definitely does more harm than good as far as we understand it now.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And, it should be causing more cancers. And we should see a higher level of cancer in these wolves. But
Yes, they've
yeah,
developed some kind of defense. That's good.
yeah, yeah.
I know another one is like osteoporosis. Bears can go crawl in a hole and sleep for 6 months and their bones do not degrade. Whereas humans, if they don't get enough exercise, their bones lose calcium. And they've tried to figure out how they do it. If they figure out how the bears do it, maybe we can give that to the humans that are getting old and losing their bone mass.
Or on the International Space Station,
Right.
if you're up there for 6 months, I think you come back and you can barely walk.
That's right. And you have lost bone mass. The problem is you're
Yeah,
not getting enough exercise up there without gravity. And so, yeah, I mean, this is great. Studying how it happens in the natural world is a good way to find techniques we can use.
yeah. All right. Well, that's for me. Sounds like it's a wrap for you.
Yep.
So
Okay.
we'll join
Good.
up on Tuesday, eh?
Yeah, that's right. And probably be back to the regular schedule then. I think I don't have a class on Tuesday.
Yeah, and that will be in July.
Yeah, I guess so. We're pretty much done with June. Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Farewell.